Welcome to Below the 49th, my personal pulse of the United States of America, my neighbor to the south, below the 49th. I'm Michael A. Charbon. Today's topic is why create below the 49th. So here's a little background and why. I'm a Canadian-born person. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I grew up as a child surrounded by American media. As a 3.5-year-old child, my first vivid memory was from my grandparents' basement. It was a funeral of John F. Kennedy with a flag-draped wagon, and I remember a riderless horse with the boots backwards in the stirrups. Searing images that as a child I will never ever forget. As a kid, I was watching WKBW TV, Channel 7 in Buffalo, New York. It was an ABC affiliate, home of Irv Weinstein. I would wake up in the mornings and I would watch Rocket Ship 7. So I got every single American channel you would want, and basically grew up with American sitcoms and all those 70s interesting premises and movies. My parents were kind of news hounds and would always watch the nightly news. And I saw the vivid images from the Vietnam War, and I quickly realized what was going on in the States. I watched Nixon resign. I understood what Watergate was at 14 years of age. So in high school, I started to volunteer for the local cable station, Community Access, as you would know it in the United States. I became a fledgling actor with some limited success. But in 1978, I had the American dream. I flew to LA and I was in one feature. So I really got a taste of it. I got the bug. And as a young man, I grew up influenced by Johnny Carson. I loved Johnny Carson. He was the king. I mean, Saturday Night Live was a religion. I became fascinated with American TV and sports production. And as a result, I went on actually to making a living of it, being a professional broadcast television producer here in Canada. So one would say, what is the bar that you always attain to? And it was always America, because they had the most budgets and they were the most innovative. So my American presidential influences are interesting. As a Republican, I looked at Reagan and Bush, 41-43. As a Democrat, I looked at Clinton and Obama. I've watched every inauguration, State of the Union speech, presidential debate, political conventions. I understand the Electoral College, the Senate, and even understand aspects of Medicare, Medicaid, and the VA. When CNN arrived in 1980, it fundamentally changed how live news was covered for everybody. CNN became the world's news station. And cable news had continuous live coverage of the world events, which was never done before. I mean, you got me. So as an independent producer, I would be at home working and writing and talking on the phone. I'd always have a TV on. So I was always influenced by all these critical events that were taking place in the United States. And it was covered on CNN, and that's what impacted and shaped my perspective of America. I mean, imagine, I watched the Gulf War take place, the Rodney King riots. I watched Waco, Texas, the Branch Davidian. I watched it from the morning when they were there and they were outside, they were far enough away, they were doing their long shots, when the military moved in and the tanks and the fire. It was unreal. I mean, I couldn't believe it. In 1996, Fox News came along and actually challenged the dominance that CNN had. So that was an interesting aspect. In 1998, there was the Clinton and Lewinsky trial. Interesting. Linda Tripp actually died today. And the tragedy of 9/11. I mean, I saw it from 10 to 9 till 6 o'clock the next morning. I just couldn't turn it off. It was unreal. It was so tragic. And I had a loved one actually live at that time in New York. And think of the Iraq War. I mean, the whole situation, from moving, from watching targets, from what was going on, it was unreal. Then in 2005, Katrina. In 2008, the election of Barack Obama. To watch America be so engaged and so enriched by what Barack Obama, the hope that he brought to your nation. Unfortunately, I also watched the economic clash, or crash as one would say, which was another tragic story. But again, news just covered it like it was no tomorrow. The 2016 election coverage between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump was something that I will never forget. I remember the polls. I remember how Fox had one poll and MSNBC had another poll. How could they be so different? And I remember watching CNN election night. Van Jones, a key speech. America was whitewashed. They were whitewashed. I mean, I couldn't believe he would say that. And, you know, there was people on the dais at the time that were sitting there and crying. It was unreal. I hate to say it, but I did predict Trump would win. I also predicted that Brexit would happen in the UK, but I digress with that. That's for a later thing. In 2019, I watched the Supreme Court hearings with Kavanaugh. And of course, in 2020, the impeachment hearings of both the committees and the Senate. And oh my goodness, it was tremendous just to watch it all go down. And today, here we're in this COVID-19 virus and the daily COVID virus presidential updates. I'm absolutely amazed that a president can go in front of the nation for 90 minutes every single day. I mean, these are all monumental occurrences that have influenced my beliefs and my perception of America and of American politics. I mean, I've been privileged to work and travel and holiday extensively in the United States. I love the people, the food, and the rich history. We are so very similar in so many ways, but then again, so different in our politics and some of our social safety nets. I mean, consider our great country's 49th parallel. It's that dividing line between our two borders. I mean, it's 5,525 miles, and it was established in 1783. I mean, it's the world's longest unguarded border, hence my title, Below the 49th. Canada, this is a cool stat here, Canada has a population of 37 million people, basically combined Texas and New Jersey, and that's Canada. Some would say Canada is a socio-democratic society because we have all these social parachutes. To a certain extent, that's true. But here we are, 37 million people, and we have 5 political parties. We have the Conservatives, which are very much like the Republicans. We have the Liberals, which are very much like the Democrats. Then we have the New Democratic Party. We have the Green Party, and the Bloc des Québécois, which is representing our French contingent in Canada, which is our second language. We have universal health care. We're also, for the most part, pro-choice. We have extremely restricted gun control laws. There's no Second Amendment here. No death penalty, and university and colleges are heavily financed and sponsored by the government. In contrast, your population in the States is 329 million, more than 10 times Canada. And you have 2 political parties, Republican or Democrat. How is that? Anyways, but nowhere else in the world does cable news and talk radio talk politics the way you guys do about your politicians. I mean, today I read multiple news feeds. I listen to a variety of talk radio. I watch CNN and Fox and CNBC and NBC, CBS, ABC. As I flip around, I drive my wife nuts with my converter because I want to get some perspective. I mean, with the Trump administration, I really realized the polarization, the racialization, and the tribal nature of your politics. You know, I've watched this with fascination. Presidential debates, Senate hearings, trials, investigations, C-SPAN, thank goodness for C-SPAN. And, you know, your Supreme Court hearings, I have watched them all. America is fascinating. There's always political breaking news every minute. And I belong to no one party. I have no skin in the game, other than that I find the media and your politics very absorbing, pretty obvious. So fast forward to today. Yesterday, April the 8th, Bernie Sanders announced that he is removing himself from the Democratic leadership race. Well, that's making Joe Biden now the de facto Democratic nominee. I say for the record that he needs Kamala Harris as his running mate for so many reasons. I mean, so many reasons. But anyway, so that's the ticket. It's Trump versus Biden for 2020. I mean, the 2020 election will be very, very eventful. It's going to be volatile, and it's going to be transformational once again, particularly with, as I said, the Bernie Sanders effect, because he has this little socialistic aspect that's ignited some youth. And now, because he's kind of de facto been pushed aside because of the COVID problem, it's Biden all the way. So in Below the 49th, I hope to inject unbiased perspective on the huge U.S. news machine. I'd like to identify the spin and the blatant network bias on any issue. And believe me, there is real tribal separation and bias. I mean, the interpretation of statements and facts, I mean, it varies on who you watch. There really exists a political line from one cable news channel to the other, I should say. And that's very troubling if you think about it. These political lines hide the facts at times, they cloud the issues, and they spin. Oh, do they spin? They all spin. Not one more than the other, they all spin. And this really is the meat of what I hope to address. I'm going to dip my toe into the discussion with you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to learn from you. I want to share with you discussions. My goal is to earn your respect by representing an overview and my observations, and even some predictions once in a while. I want to continue the conversation from my view up here, your neighbor, the person above the 49th, but it's all about you below the 49th. Please like and share. If you have a comment, please leave it. I thank you for those considerations. And until next time, God bless, take care, stay inside. I'm Michael A. Charbon for Below the 49th.